Today, Kev and I are in the offices of William Michael Barbee. How you doing, brother?
I'm blessed, man. I'm so grateful for this opportunity and thankful that you and Kev came by.
Yeah, we met very, very, very recently, but I was interested in your campaign and what you're all about. So before we get into that, let's go back a little bit, because in our talking a couple of days ago, I found out that we have some sort of a kinship with Virginia. Where is that for you?
Well, Richmond, Virginia is what we discussed, and that's where my father was raised. He was raised down with his aunt, Moselle Chambers.
Yeah.
And went to Armstrong High School, best friends with Governor Doug Wilder and Blue Juice and Jimmy Odell, all went into the military. So us coming north, well, my father coming north to live here in Newark, New Jersey, came in the 50s. He actually first went to Patterson, then into Newark, and that's where we settled here.
Yeah, and this whole Virginia thing, and you mentioned the Honorable Doug Wilder.
Correct.
My father was very good friends with him as well.
Okay.
So we probably have a bit more of a tie, an indirect tie than we know. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about yourself, man, because you do a multitude of things,
Well, my background is business, and I've had a lot of success. Before I always talk about business, I talk about those who came before me. Like my great aunt was the first African-American woman to build a church in the city of Newark from the ground up.
Wow.
And that church was built with the hands of poor people, no government loan. So when people look at my success and all the businesses I have, I always speak to, there's a history that I come from of hard workers who worked with their hands and their minds. And so me building companies, it started with a limousine service. And then that over time amassed into 4 forms of transportation: private ambulance service, limousines, charter buses, and school buses. From there, I built upon and bought commercial real estate where we're in the office building that I own, and residential property. I wanted to give back. I started a mental health substance misuse clinic. Also partnered with a friend. We changed the brand of his daycare facilities as we expanded into 4 separate units in Irvington, Newark, Maplewood. Karate for Youth to Karate for Kids brand. And so I've had a plethora of experience in business.
Yeah, and for me, you impress me as being of the people and for the people, for sure. There's so much that you've been involved with. But today, we're here to talk about your political aspirations. Let's talk about that.
Well, I'm glad that you opened up with for the people. It's because my background is I was homeless. Where this office building is located, I was displaced as a result of a fire in 1980. I lived in the Lincoln Motel. Our family for 2 years was homeless. It was with the help of the Salvation Army with vouchers that gave us a place to live, a place to eat. So when today, as a successful businessman and entrepreneur and philanthropist, it's important that I not forget where I come from. Because often people look at you today and they don't understand the story and your struggle to where you are, how you got to where you are. And so me coming full circle and just wanting to represent the people is something I've always done, whether it's on the boards of organizations like the Mental Health Association, I'm on the board at the Salvation Army, Healthcare Foundation of the Oranges, Montclair Art Museum, the African American Cultural Committee, Airmid Foundation. So giving back to communities is something that requires intentionality, and it's something that I practice on a regular basis.
That's really impressive to me, because oftentimes, not all of us, but there are those of us who, once we find our way, just the fact that you went from being homeless to amassing all you've done to this day, some of us sometimes lose hope or lose focus on what the goal should be. Each one teach one, each one reach for one and pull them up. That seems to be your direct purpose.
Well, it's part of my direct purpose, and I have to really touch into the mental health component. Growing up in urban America, going through trauma, I remember at 14 years old, we were homeless. Who would ever be able to tell that young boy who was standing on the street on Evergreen Place at the Lincoln Motel that 20 years later, you're going to own the office building across the street from where you're presently homeless? Who could tell that narrative other than myself? That's my real life experience. And so coming full circle, telling these things, I have to talk about mental wellness. Growing up in the urban community, particularly in Newark during the late 60s, early 70s, and 80s, you're talking about trauma that kids and children face every day. They're taught to normalize the trauma because in black and brown communities, it was almost taboo at times, or resources weren't available for us in our community. So now me telling about my struggles, but my triumphs, is very important for that young child who's watching that person of color who they may not feel understand what they've been through. But I'm here to say that beyond all the successes, there's a whole story there. And so mental wellness is very important. Weekly, I lead a group up at the West Orange Reservation in West Orange on Cherry Lane Road, and we exercise. We started doing that when COVID hit the shores. We all were at a loss. I lost over 80 people over a 3-year period. But in the earlier part, I started experiencing anxiety. And being a former consumer of mental health services to now an advocate, an owner of a mental health facility, as well as a philanthropist board member, I know the importance of mental wellness. So I encourage friends to come together. We will have health fairs at the reservoir by the paddle boats. We will walk until this day, 3 years later. We started with 40 people. We still are out there in some facet every weekend exercising, holding each other as mental wellness accountability partners. And so it's important that that is part of the narrative as we go forward into this political campaign with West Orange. It's important that we put mental wellness in the forefront of the school system, even though the West Orange 62% of the budget goes towards the Board of Education. It's important that our stakeholders who are representative of the council can push the agenda or at least influence the agenda to make the curriculum for students a mental wellness. I think about mental wellness when I'm taught to normalize things, or we've been trained to normalize things. Having group sessions during the school day, we have periods, what are they, 45, 50 minutes? Mm-hmm. And so if we had these curriculums where each day there was a period called group, or once a week or twice a week, whatever way, you can have group, and group is led by the group. They establish the rules, but the teacher or the clinician is the facilitator to ensure that the group stays together, to ensure that the messaging is going across, but the group controls it, whether they want to talk about pizza or talk about stress. They need that opportunity. Today is a time like no other. So mental health, mental wellness is important. Mental wellness is also important because we've seen over these years many black and brown communities where law enforcement interaction with people of color has resulted in some very traumatic things. And so why is it important to partner with the Mental Health Association, West Orange Police, to give an understanding and education, to give a partnership to teach law enforcement what and how to deal with crisis dealing with mental illness. And so that's very important, and I'm so happy that the Mental Health Association, West Orange Police, is the pilot program for the state of New Jersey. So being on that board and being the board secretary for the past 4 or 5 years, it's important that not only the work we're doing is reflected in the community, that people know that there is resources, there is help. There's 988, that's your emergency number, your hotline, for speaking to someone 24 hours if you have a mental health crisis. So it's important that we arm people with that, and that's why this platform that I'm speaking on is so important, because I was a consumer. Sure. I had a therapist for 2 years. It was through therapy that I became better. So if I can become better from all the trauma, homelessness, and everything else that you can imagine, and be where I am today, I know it can work for you just as well.
And I think there are two important pieces of what you've said. Actually, there are many legs of it. But dealing with PTSD and our people, black and brown people, and even going back as far as slavery and how we've always been taught to kind of, whether it's been taught to suck it in, whether it's been not particularly even given those services in the community as we should. It's great to have an advocate such as you, again, someone who's directly been there and rose up from there and now reaching back. So that really impresses me.
Sure. One of the people who I study, or two people I study, one is a local resident here. He teaches at one of the local colleges, Dr. Akil Kafani, and also Dr. Joy DeGrew. She's a very noted sociology, and she talks about post-traumatic slave syndrome. And even in my latest book, Hear My Voice, Born Black in America, I speak about the impact that slavery has had on us and the impact it still has. I talk about systemic factors and structural factors. And when we align ourselves with understanding, today they talk about critical race theory and they try to make a shadow, but it's nothing but history being taught in an honest way.
Sure.
And so when we look at the impact that marginalized communities have faced, and then they're expected to be represented in a fair way in today's society, we have to consider everything that's been omitted or blocked or taken away from people of color. And so coming to the forefront, having these narratives, talking about historic factors that play into the narrative of our success is very important as well.
Well, I can't sing your praise enough, because the multitude of things that you've done, businessman, philanthropist, mental wellness advocate, political person, you seem to have it all wrapped up, and you don't impress me as someone who lets any moss grow under his feet. So what else do you do, brother?
Well, that exhale is part of what I do. I've learned how to breathe.
Smart.
Because often, people always have little sidebars, say, Mike, you need to slow down. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, you need to pick it up. The way I live life is but so long, man. And, we're making an imprint. My mantra that I've patent trademarked is called leave more than you take. That's about giving of yourself to something greater.
Sure.
And so, I'm on these organizational boards. Yes, I'm in the community, and now I'm going to a larger platform on the political scale. Yes, why? Because I believe in leaving more than I take. It's important. I could tell you a whole list of things I do. This artwork here, this is a painting I've done.
Oh, wow.
I went to art school, Arts High School, School of Performing Arts. I read all the time. I'm in graduate school, finishing up with a degree in clinical counseling with a GPA of 3.92. So I'm constantly doing many things. And so whether it's my mental health clinic, providing different platforms for people to speak and to address different issues, for different ones to open opportunities to show their artwork, having health fairs through other organizations. I mean, I do a lot, man. I cycle on the weekends.
Wow.
I hike on the weekends. I do everything. I go to Broadway shows, but I laugh, I exhale, I breathe. That's what I do. And I want more people to start breathing, realizing that life isn't but so long. I just lost a friend. We just buried a 40-plus year friendship last week, and it was such a hard thing, but I was so grateful, and I've learned, even because of COVID, how to accept death even better.
Sure.
And so it's about the time that you share together, man. And so rather than those 80 people I lost in a 3-year period during COVID, now 80. As I'm losing 80 plus, now that I'm losing more people, I realize, guess what? I'm getting older. So it's just by rule of nature that people will die. Yeah. And so I'm learning to just value the time that I have with them, man. So I make time, and I just enjoy those things that are important.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, and I think the West Orange community would be great to have you. So let's close it out. November the 8th, that's the day.
Yes, Tuesday, November the 8th. It's very important that you come out, cast your vote for letter 3H, William Michael Barbee. Vote for me means a vote for change. It's a vote for experience. It's a vote for representation on the board for the residents. It's a vote for more mental health services, mental wellness services. It's a vote for more transparency in government, less conflicts of interest. It's a vote for open bidding process so that the small business owner, the female business owner, the Jewish business owner, African-American Jewish owner, all people have equal playing field at the table. What we find in many areas is that only certain groups get certain contracts. And so it's not an open bid right now. And that's what we're trying to really get out the way. Another thing I want to say before we end, we're a beautiful town, West Orange. Our layout is different than any other town. Often the residents, sadly, we look at other towns like South Orange, Montclair, Bloomfield, and we look at their redevelopment and we compare ourselves wrongfully to them. What we have that none of them have. We have lush parks. We have greeneries. We have safe spaces. We protect our environment. We value those things. And so to create the idea or redevelop a downtown area is something that's possible for us. We have the Edison project. We have the studio concept that's coming behind. we have a variety of things, but we need to learn how to merge all of those communities that we have in West Orange into one big family. And so part of that 3H Tuesday, November the 8th, that's what you're getting. You're getting that type of experience, someone with empathy who wants to merge those communities together as one.
It's been a great conversation. Tuesday, November the 8th, 3H, William Michael Barbee.
That's right.
It's been great talking with you.
God bless you, and thank you, my brother.
Have a great one.
Likewise. Peace.
Don't be afraid. Don't walk away.